I'm close with his family, and they were like, yeah, he had like he was known
Oh, yeah,
to
that's
buy his
true.
truck because he had this truck since like 2004. Oh yeah, it's old and hasn't
No,
moved
I
in
don't have nothing
Like
that long.
50 or something.
no, I'm
Oh,
talking
no,
about
never
for
mind.
like for he's a contractor, and I was like, man, it would be nice to have a truck that's just like that I could just haul drywall in and whatever and just not care. It's 20 some years old. They're like giving me a price that I
What's the
feel like
date
they can't
today?
turn down. Like it's out there, like the
The
rockers
15th.
all rotted on it, but it's like
Okay.
it's extended cab. It's got 8 foot bed. You know most new trucks don't have an 8 foot bed. So when you put drywall, it's hanging out over the
You
fucking.
ready,
I can
Ken?
close the tailgate. Has job boxes all over the side. Yeah.
Good evening. I would like to call to order the July 15th Borough Council meeting. If you could rise for the pledge and remain standing for a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Sydney?
Mr. Kukovic?
I'm here.
Mr. Lister?
Here.
Ms. Boyd? Here. Mr. Reddinger?
Here.
Ms. Reed?
Here.
Ms. Blumenbecker? And Ms. Miller?
Here.
Thanks.
Okay. Now is the time for public comment on agenda items. Seeing none, we're going to move number 12, which is Mara, to now. And
If the council doesn't have any objection, we take them first. We have with us tonight, David Franklin from Middletown Area School District. David, if you would mind coming up to the microphone here. Last week we discussed, or not, last meeting, I think we discussed the new Mara agreement. Council had some questions and had requested that representative would come in and entertain a few questions. So, anybody? There were some questions about switching from director to coordinator. Was that
Right.
one of them? David, could you kind of?
Sure, happy to do that. And I also will introduce one of the coordinators that came with me. But the position had gone through a couple of name changes, and some of the agreements were not updated when some of those names were changed. I think it started as Recreation Program Supervisor, and that's under the restart when we had the grant through DCNR. And then there was a request to make a change to Recreation Programs Director, I think in 2022. And that was when, so the supervisor would have been when we initially hired Will Foster. That name, that title change remained when we initially hired Nate Deagle. And then it was Nate that requested the change to director based upon what he said some of his peers were. And so that was a change that occurred in 2022. And then Nate resigned in December of 2024. And Abby Neville carried on the operations during that time as the acting recreation programs director. But she was already here under Nate, operating as the child care program coordinator. During that time period, we realized that the operations really required a little bit more boots on the ground type personnel, which is what Abby was, doing child care program, which is the biggest program of Mara and is the primary revenue source for Mara. But we wanted another boots on the ground type person running the recreation programs, somebody that had more of a flexible schedule that could attend evening activities because most of the recreation activities occur at night, and So there was a desire to actually look at doing kind of co-positions, a person that was responsible for the childcare and a person that was responsible for the recreation programs, rather than more of a ladder type structure where there was a person that was in charge of it all, but may not actually be boots on the ground for anything. So that's when we looked for a recreation programs coordinator position, which was an hourly position instead of a salary position, will be paid based upon the hours that they work, and will have the ability to monitor the type of work that actually occurs. But that is actually the person that I would introduce you to, which is Nate Govern, who was the person that was hired as the recreation programs coordinator.
So you don't see any, in terms of the goal of the rec association, any detriment from going to one job description of the director to an hourly rate? You still see that the coordinator will be out there looking for other revenue sources or other types of programs that might be money-making things for the...
I think actually now, because we have two people that feel the ability to work cooperatively together, we have the ability to branch into all the areas and potentially, seek out revenue sources. We were very clear, I believe Nate will agree with that, we were very clear in the interviews with Nate that that is one of the things that, we want to always be looking for additional revenue sources. It may come through contributions and types of funding that isn't necessarily program, but we generally believe that most of it will be program-driven revenue, and we really want to branch out and increase the programming that MARA is doing. Nate had a lot of great ideas. He's a young college graduate in that field and brings a lot to the table, we believe, that will kind of reinvigorate some of the MARA programs that had existed and then branch into other areas as well.
So the school district operates on a fiscal year from July to July. So in terms of these agreement changes, you're looking to get approval as soon as possible then, I think, this year.
Yeah, we understand that a lot, and I apologize. I hope Mrs. Miller shared some of the apologies from the school district. We made the mistake of not going back and looking at all of the information in the agreement, so we made some mistakes in the way in which the process of seeking an additional a replacement employee occurred. But we desire to kind of move forward as quickly as we can, but we understand that legislative requirement that you need to go through the process to make changes and update agreements. So we're willing to wait.
Hey, Dave, what's your role with MARA?
So I have been involved, so my original position, or my real position, is the Chief Financial Officer for the school district.
Okay.
I was involved in the start of MARA, the restart of MARA.
Gotcha.
I was the person that I guess the municipalities had faith in, and so they wanted me to be the supervisor of the person that was hired. So I was originally
Gotcha.
listed in the agreements as the person that was the supervisor of the MARA personnel. That's also changed in this agreement. It is now the assistant to the superintendent that is supervising MARA. The change happened more because we are so much more involved in educational type programming, and I just don't have the background of dealing with all of the rules associated with child care programs. And so we needed to make a change to have somebody that had that expertise instead of just the financial. My expertise is in the financial area, and I'm fine providing support to MARA in budgeting and items like that, but I'm not the expert in childcare.
Yeah, it means a lot to us that you guys came out. I know we were really concerned about kind of re-signing this agreement based on the issues that happened with the child care and how much money was lost there. So I guess, just honestly, like how can we just trust that the money is going to be used well, not have a situation like that happen again? I think that's the biggest holdup.
Yeah, I think hopefully, in any history, there's sometimes a moment that you don't like and you're not proud of. But I think the history of MARA has been positive since its inception, and we've managed the programming well. We just entered into, the decision to do the daycare operations, without, I think, full thought of the ramifications of how being a school district operation would tie things together. So the expertise of the people that do childcare and have had experience with childcare would have been comfortable if it weren't under the school district. And so what we learned in the process and should have known before we began is that a lot of the rules that relate to the school district would have also related to the childcare programming. So the McKinney-Vento requirements that require us as a school district to provide education to students that are considered homeless would have also passed on to a childcare type program. Transportation may have fallen under that as a childcare program. It just exposed us to more things than what we would have wanted to do in that situation. So, not that the idea of a daycare program is bad. I think it's a great thing and it's definitely a needed area. It's just not something that fits well under what the school district is doing.
Okay.
Other questions?
Angie?
How often does the Mara body meet?
The Mara body is supposed to meet 4 times a year per the agreement and will be meeting 4 times a year per the agreement. It didn't meet during the period when Nate had resigned. There was a lapse in meetings, and that was the lack of somebody that was ultimately responsible for it.
Because, so when was the child care situation? When did that, or the daycare situation, when did that occur?
It was initially started, or contact with Glad Tidings began last summer, and the lease agreement would have been signed in August or September. So we actually were in the lease agreement for several months before Mr. Deagle resigned.
Because it is a little concerning that that went on for so long, and I mean, our representative was unaware that there was a problem, and then there were financials given, and it was $50-some thousand that was lost. I mean, that's a large chunk of money that...
The lease was intended to exist before the program would have been operational. So the initial period of time, September, October, November, whatever those months were, when the lease was in existence, that would have been intended for that to be a lease expense before there was income associated with the child care program. The child care program was supposed to start in January, and that's when the shutdown actually was in December, that we didn't end up actually opening it up. And then we had contacted the church, and working through them, we agreed to an early end to the lease, but it was more months than what would have been intended without income.
And how long was staff on the payroll for the child care?
We began hiring the additional staff members that would have been needed as full-time employees for the daycare program November board meetings, I believe, or December board meetings. They were on board for maybe a month to 6 weeks when we made the decision to not go in that direction. We attempted to pull all of those individuals into other positions within the school district. Some chose to resign.
How often, and I apologize, I don't recall from the agreement, but how often when you have the meetings, are the financials given at the meetings?
The financials are given at every meeting, and they could be given out more frequently than that in between meetings. And when we began, I believe Mara met monthly or every other month, even though the agreement said 4 times a year. So we're not opposed to more frequent meetings if that is something that any of the advisory board members would want.
Was the original intent with the grant when Mara originally was formed that over time Mara would be self-sufficient?
I don't know that it was ever intended for it to be self-sufficient. I think it was intended to sustain itself without the grant. So the funding for Mara at the beginning was 100% of the grant in the first year to sustain the employee, the director, and then 75, 50, 25. The intent was for program revenue to sustain the employees of Mara so that there wouldn't be a need to increase any support from the municipalities in the school district. I don't know that it was ever intended, not that I remember communicating it as such, that it would ever be fully supported by the program revenue.
And not the municipality?
Correct.
Okay.
David, the people that were hired for the daycare, were they hourly?
The people that were hired from yes, all were hourly.
Okay, so if it never opened, I mean, I don't have that in front of me, but there was a line item that I thought was $20-some thousand for their pay. I'm confused as to how that happened if the daycare never opened.
So they were required to get the site up and running, so they were actively employed in prepping Glad Tidings Assembly for the daycare program. So
Right.
they were on board working and training.
Yeah, I apologize that I don't have the packet from the last meeting, but if I'm not mistaken, I think Mr. Redinger did some back of the napkin calculations, and the number of hours that would have equated to, if it was an hourly employee, was astronomical. And I just can't believe that would have been the case if the daycare never opened.
Yeah, it wouldn't have been one employee, it was multiple employees, but certainly we can provide that information. Like, we can do the drop down and actually get you the information of the employees and the hours that they work.
When it became apparent that this wasn't going to happen, I mean, how many months into the lease, was it a month-to-month lease or was it an extended lease?
It was a year lease.
It was a year. Did anyone approach Glad Tidings when you started to realize there were going to be issues and say, is there any way we could get out of this right now and pay a penalty or something of that nature?
Yeah, that's what ultimately happened, is we got out as early as we could.
Yeah, that was very concerning to me because that was a large lump sum of money. I'm not sure what the hours were that Mr. Redinger calculated last time, but I find how many employees are we talking for the daycare?
May have been about 5 employees, but I don't have that information handy with me right now, but I'm glad to get that for you.
Okay.
Thank
you.
Was a termination fee paid on the lease, a special extra?
Just that the lease was paid through the time period that we agreed to with Glad Tidings, and we did not receive the security deposit back, which was
Through the end of the year?
1 month's rent. No, we did not pay the full 12 months. We paid through the time period that we agreed to end, which may have been February or March.
But and not to belabor the point, but if the lease was signed in August, I would think one would know earlier than March of the following year that this wasn't working out.
The decision wasn't made until December that we were not going to open the child care program.
And so if it was made in December, then what's the delay from December to March to try to cancel that lease?
That was when we began to try to cancel the lease, and they agreed to it, but we still had supplies that we needed to get out of there, and so the agreement was through the end of February or the end of March. I don't remember which one.
Were the supplies charged as part of the $50,000?
What?
The supplies you just mentioned, were those charged to the MARA program?
Yeah, it's in that accounting because it said furniture and things of that nature.
Yeah.
Where's that stuff?
Those are being sold. they'll be auctioned, and then the revenue will go back in tomorrow when those are sold. They're being put up for auction on an auction site, Municipid.
I have a question for you.
Sure.
Does anybody?
I'm done, thanks.
You referenced that the employees that were hired for this program were employed roughly 4 to 6 weeks, so we'll take an average of 5 weeks. So you have roughly, 40 hours a week, that's 200 hours per employee. You referenced there was 5 employees hired for this program. That's roughly 1,000 hours in that 5-week span that they were employed for this program. Does that sound roundabout accurate?
I really would prefer to actually dig into the information and get that for you.
Like I said, just doing some
Yeah.
paper math here based on the data that has been being spit out.
Yeah, but being an accountant, I like to deal with real numbers, so I'd prefer to actually get you real numbers.
Do you have an average hourly salary of what these employees were making?
I would say that they were potentially $20 an hour.
So if you take 1,000 hours divided by 20,000 hour, $20,000, which was the amount of that comes out to $20 an hour. Just do this basic math here.
Yeah.
Just curious.
I'm more than happy to get you the actual information.
Thank you.
Yep,
David, if you get that information, you could send it to me.
sure.
I have another question, not in regards to this, I'll jump forward here for you guys. Would you, I mean, I'm just curious, like, can you paint a vision to me? Like, what's Mara doing, like in store for, the year ahead? What programmings you guys are offering or thinking about them?
Yeah, I mean, definitely the child care program is the biggest thing that we will continue to do because it's the primary revenue source. And so we were continuing that as the before and after care program during the school year, and then during the summer, it's a summer camp program, which is a full day program. That is the programs that Abby Neville, the child care program coordinator, is responsible for. And then she is sharing responsibility for the Breakfast with Santa and the Sweetheart Dance with Nate. But those are not generally revenue generators. They're just things that are very beneficial for the community and create goodwill. Nate will be doing the summer playground program, which is at Fink Elementary School. That's just a morning program over the summer. And then he's going to be doing all of the basketball programming that would have been done like during the winter season. And then Nate had some other good ideas, which, if it's okay, can I bring Nate up to actually talk to you? Want to share some of your thoughts?
Yeah, so I'm new Nate, I guess. Some of the ideas that I've had were just not only to get the kids involved in the community, but also adults, where I've thought of doing like some softball, like team gatherings, and to go against other communities, and then also some soccer clinics. I've spoke to multiple of the coaches in the Middletown area school district to get them on board to kind of run a clinic for even younger athletes and kids that are just getting introduced into sports. And then I'm also meeting with the president of the school board to take over the basketball program because he was running that while previous Nate was away. And then I was thinking about getting pickleball involved because I think that's a rising sport and that'll get a lot of our older clientele to get involved in the community as well.
Yeah, good idea.
Excuse me, Nate, may I ask, please? I know for years Mara's basketball program was run out of the Main Street gym, but that's not what you would be doing next winter. Wouldn't you, was the idea to relocate it to the school district, a school district gym?
We did do the majority, I think, of the basketball program out of the school gyms this past winter,
Okay,
and used Main Street Gym on occasions. But yeah, we're intending to use the school facilities as much as we can. And certainly it's great to have Main Street Gym as a supplement to that as well. But different now that coordination is a little bit different with Main Street Gym now.
right, okay, thanks.
Nate, I got
Thought he was free.
yeah, I got a question. You guys ran, spin class at one point. Are you ever gonna run that class again?
I was never informed that it was ran, but that's definitely something that I can take a look into and see if I can find some resources to get that started again.
It wasn't very popular, wasn't profitable, but we could do a better push potentially on it. There definitely is a lack or a failure, I think, on the part of trying to emphasize recreational activities for adults. And that's one of the things that needs to be more of a focus.
Really? Yeah. I know some people in Middletown that wanted to start up, volleyball and stuff like that out at the park and everything.
There you go.
And that's also something, like, why they chose me to come in is I want to really put stuff out there via social media wise, because I think that's something that's kind of taken a part of a lot of people's lives, is social media is such a big thing and everyone's so embedded in their phones to kind of be able to get out to those people that don't see the flyers on buildings or hear the announcements. So,
Nate and David, one of the, I think I can say it here, one of the reasons we asked a question about basketball at the Main Street gym, because the former director was looking to move away from there entirely at some point, was his focus. And for a number of reasons I won't get into, but we are, if that were to happen, we are going to be faced with a decision possibly at some point that maybe what do we do with that building?
Yeah.
We know that the school district is building a new administration building, and the current administration building may be on the sales block at some point, and with that is included a parking lot, and that, you know, as you probably know, our Main Street gym does not have a parking lot. So those kind of things have existed together for many years and have been a shared space. You know, I think that in terms of the community, we have to give some thought to that.
And I don't think the lack or the failure or the movement away from the Main Street gym had really anything other than do with just the coordination of the use with the existing organization that's running it. With the new administration building also, there's a new elementary building that has a much larger gym, and so it does provide some of the facility that we'd be looking for, geared for that particular age group. But I think, you know, one of the conversations that Mrs. Miller and I had at the last meeting is that we want to try to also just be a better partner with things, and so, you know, we would like to have dialogue with the borough to determine, you know, what is beneficial for you, what is beneficial for Mara as well, before any decision is officially made.
Thank you.
I have another question, I'm sorry.
Sure.
If the borough would not enter into the contract, and I'm not saying that was the case, I'm just trying to, you know, figure out what the ramifications would be. Any program, what would that mean for a resident that wanted to join a program?
I don't think we've actually had those thoughts. Certainly that's not our desire, so we didn't kind of go down that path. All the children in the borough are also children of the school district, so they're already members in that sense. But I guess that would have to be a decision that the advisory board would make, so I don't think it's a decision that the school district makes alone. I think if Lower Spatara Township and Royalton Borough enter into the agreement, they'd have to make a determination.
This is probably a really silly question, but something you said, I'm a little confused. So you do the after-school daycare and before-school daycare. What was the thing out at the church?
That was going to be school day. It would have been childcare all day long.
And that's different from summer
Yeah,
camp.
summer camp is childcare during the day for school-age children. The church program would have been preschool,
Okay.
like infant to 5-year-old,
Okay.
childcare program.
Okay. And I didn't even realize there was such a difference until you just said all the different things, and then I was like, well, wait a minute, what? Okay, now I understand.
Did also want to make a comment. One of the other things that's addressed in one of the two agreements, I'm not sure which one, is that the director, which would now be the two co-coordinators, is supposed to attend the council meetings on a regular basis, and that was something that hadn't happened. I know I was here once several years ago with Mr. Deagle. We attended one of the meetings, and we definitely would like to see that be something that is, you know, we want to be able to have the feedback of the borough, of the township, and the way to do that best is for us to attend your meetings so that you can actually speak directly to us.
It's also important for him to be at your meetings, correct? Your school board meetings.
Yes.
So my request is, can the school district move their meetings because you are the same night we are?
I can share that information.
Otherwise, he's not going to be at both.
And it wouldn't be at every meeting. It's the way that it's listed is that on a regular basis, you're attending occasional meetings.
Yeah, I think even for this issue that you bring up, as well as the residents of the town who are also members of the school district, I don't think it's fair to them that they have to pick between a school district meeting and a borough council meeting. And this has been brought up multiple times over the years, but one of the two bodies is going to have to do it if we're going to try to give people that option. So
Right.
if you could bring that up to the school board.
I will definitely do that.
All righty. Thank you.
Sure.
Mr. Franklin, thank you for attending and answering our hard questions. We really needed answers
Yeah.
to the hard questions.
Yeah, I was happy to come. Would happy to come anytime you wanted me to. And I will get the information regarding the wages that would have been paid to the childcare workers at Glad Tidings, the number of people, the number of hours, and the rates.
Thanks, David.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Anything else that I can get, please, Mrs. Miller, Mr. Kleinpeter, just share it with us, and we'll provide that to you.
Thanks, Nate. It's nice to meet you.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks.
Meeting.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Agenda item number 1.
Okay, do I have a motion to approve council meeting minutes for the July 1st, 2025 meeting as submitted?
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion passes. Item number 2.
Do I have a motion to approve payment of bills as shown on the accounts payable list dated July 10th, 2025, which is for the period of June 27th, 2025 through July 10th, 2025, and to ratify the approval of such bills already paid and to authorize the appropriate officials to take the required actions to make those payments?
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item number 3.
Do I have a motion to approve payment number 3 to Doug Lamb Construction in the amount of $133,587.81 as recommended by HRG Engineering for work completed on the Overdeer Park project?
So moved.
Second?
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item number 4.
As previously discussed in executive session, do I have a motion to approve increasing the assistant supervisor's hourly compensation rate to $36.06 per hour effective August 1st, 2025?
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion passes. Item number 5.
Do I have a motion to ratify the approval of the special event request from Anthony Barilla to hold a softball fundraiser for flood victims in Texas, which occurred at the Oak Hills Baseball Field on July 12th, 2025?
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item number 6, Manager's Report.
Okay, item number 1 is another special request application. This one, received from MABA requesting street closures from Hillside Road to Beechwood Drive and on the other side of the parking area at the Med Ed baseball field for MABA's annual baseball tournament on August 9th and 10th, and again on August 16th and 17th from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. If no one has any objections to us doing that, we'll put that on the agenda for a vote at the business meeting.
Sounds good.
Item number 2 on my report was on the agenda, so we've taken care of that, Doug Lamb payment. Item number 3, Dauphin County has revised and updated their hazard mitigation plan, and this is a routine action that the county does, and the borough will need to pass a resolution adopting that plan as being part of it. If nobody has any objections, we'll have that on your business meeting for approval as well. Item number 4, we received a special application request from the Grace and Mercy Church. They are requesting to use Hoffer Park on September 28th of this year from 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. to hold a fundraiser for the Middletown Volunteer Fire Department. They plan in their event to have vendors and food trucks and live music at the event. And the application's in your packet.
Sounds good.
If anybody has any, doesn't have any objections, we'll put that on the business meeting as well.
Nope.
All right, item number 5, HT Partners.
I'm sorry, Ken, I'm
Okay.
sorry. Attached to the event request for the volunteer fire company fundraiser, there is a waiver of claims and indemnification agreement. So that is covering the, as we request, insurance for the event.
Yeah, what was the
It
second?
looks as if it's a single person, I'm not, it's
So
it's
actually,
new
go back
me.
to the, fundraiser for the fire department.
Yeah.
I guess we would need something from the fire department confirming it's their event.
It's not their event, it's Grace and Mercy's event. They're raising money and they're gonna donate it to the fire.
Yeah, see, that's an issue because of the state law that, you know, you can't fundraise. Well, you can for certain fire departments, but, you know, I guess we have to make sure, I guess we'd have to, it ought to be contingent upon our checking that it's
So you'll
lawful.
look into that one?
Yeah, there's a state law out there about, you know, they essentially register fundraisers for nonprofits. So we have to make sure it's
Okay.
legal. So the fire department folks can, you know, do any kind of event or, you know, go in somewhere and do an event. And if they were asking for this to be held at that place, then there wouldn't be a question, but we'll have to watch out is, you know, are they compliant with state law that, limits who can raise money for
Okay.
other nonprofits?
All right, if nobody objects, we'll have Mr. Diamond look into that, because what they were planning to do, I think, changed a little bit. This has morphed over time with Grace and Mercy into the fire
Yeah,
department.
and it
a
may
week
be
ago.
as basic as they just need something from the fire department. The theory is, you know, if people just run around saying they're raising money for something,
Yeah, and they might
could be
not
a
have.
fraud, you know,
right.
you collect a bunch of money and you put nothing in your pocket.
Yeah, I remember this discussion that I had with the mayor, that, you know, we talked about that. You know.
Right, and the fire chief actually responded to somebody on Facebook about an idea that they had, and he said the fire department runs
Has to
their.
agree to it.
Yep.
Yeah, so, you know, the benefited nonprofit has to have control of
Yeah.
that, and they can
Yeah.
actually lose tax exemptions and things if they're not controlling it.
Okay.
I'm not trying to stop the fundraiser. I'm trying to make sure it's.
No, I didn't catch it. I remember that discussion, but this came late and Grace was handling it and, when she said fire department, because I think prior they were raising for somebody else. And, it just didn't register with me, so, we will only put it on the agenda then if it checks out with
Yeah, we'll have
Mr.
to check,
Diamond,
uh,
okay? If we get what we need there, and, if we don't, we'll be in contact with, Pastor Abdullah and let her know what's going on.
Yeah. Yeah, and it
Well,
may
I guess we
be,
can wait until we know it's a go, but would you speak to this indemnification agreement, which to me reads as if it's an individual?
okay,
Or,
so,
but we don't have to do that this minute if in fact it's not gonna be an event, but, if you would take a look at it, it's just new to me, the way I just wanna make sure the borough's covered.
okay.
Yeah, so I can, what you're saying, if it, maybe the applicant should be on behalf of Grace and Mercy Church.
Right.
It should be written in there, not just the individual's name.
It looks like it to me,
Yeah.
and then the insurance agreement looks like it's signed by an individual, not the church. So anyhow, we'll take a look at
Grace
it
had
as
some
we go
emails
forward.
that didn't quite match up with this, and
Okay.
some confusion, so yeah, we'll have to square that out
Okay,
when Grace gets in.
thank you.
All right, I'll make note of that.
Hey, we don't know if the fire department knows about this, right?
Well, Grace might, but she couldn't hear.
Okay, okay.
All right, I, have just an additional information piece that isn't on my report in front of you, but this came up more recently.
Wait, you didn't do number 5.
I said I skipped number 5? Okay. Okay, HT Partners are requesting a letter of reduction in their credit for Woodland Hills Phase 6B, 8, 9, and 10B in the amount of $1,531, or $1,531,525, leaving a balance of $966,380. HRG reviewed this and recommends that we approve that, and we'll have that on your business meeting for approval next month. Now, where I jumped ahead is the traffic study that came in for the school district. The school district is in the process of building as we heard, a new elementary school and an administration building, and there was a traffic impact study done as it relates to that project. And the impact study seemed to indicate that the amount of traffic is going to warrant a traffic light in that area, and the school district does have an agreement with HD Partners, as we do, but our agreement's a little more specific on when the developer of Woodland Hills has to do their own traffic impact study. So at this time, we're trying to get parties together, because it appears that, to me, that the traffic warrants will be met from the traffic coming out of the school before it's met coming out of Woodland Hills. But either way, it's still going to be a sufficient amount of traffic at the entrance to the high school. What I call Union and Sage is where the traffic light would eventually go.
Okay.
So the developer's been informed. He's going to be stopping in tomorrow to talk to me. But the reason for me putting it on there as an information piece is that there's a possibility that traffic light is going to come sooner, possibly come sooner than I expected. Because I think the school district is plan is to have the elementary school open for not this coming school year, but next year, 2020.
But it would be at the same location, or would it?
Well, no, the school
Potentially be a
district is
different
looking to modify one of their driveways where the Reed Elementary School is. But the traffic created with an extra buildings on 441 is going to warrant a signal somewhere.
Yeah.
And the fact that this agreement's already in place for Sage and the entrance to the high school, the school district is hoping to rely upon that one to continue with their project, with PennDOT getting the permitting. But what stands in the way is the school district, we don't have a three-way agreement between the school, Middletown, and Woodland Hills. We have a two-way agreement with Woodland Hills. It's very specific when that traffic light needs to be done. The school district has a different type of agreement with Woodland Hills saying, hey, when the time comes, you have to put that light in. We don't pay anything toward it because we're donating some land for you to put the light in, which is a lot different than saying when you have to do it.
Yeah.
So that's going to be a subject of discussion, and I'll get back to you with more later in the months to come.
Ken, while you're, I know that the specifics of the light will not yet be known, but is it possible for Rob maybe to gather some information in terms of what the difference of cost is for galvanized versus the historic poles?
We can ask some people. It might take, there might be like, well, what size, whatever,
Right.
you know, it might be an engineer we have to ask to give us a ballpark, but we could probably, even, Matt or I or somebody, Rob, we could contact HRG and see if they have any idea.
They already know what that figure is. $250,000.
Who knows what the figure is?
No, we're talking about the difference in cost, like I think between different styles of
Right.
fixture.
I'm talking about the difference between a galvanized light, like at Main Street, and the downtown light at Emo and Union.
Yeah.
So you're
What you might be quoting might be the installation cost altogether, not just the difference in the material cost.
Okay.
Okay, so that's what I would request.
Okay, we'll see what we find out. All right, that's all I have. That was the extra informational item. And anybody have any questions for me? We can move on to the next report.
Okay. Number 8, electric report.
Number
Rob?
7. Number
Oh, I'm sorry, number 7, codes. Jason?
Hello.
Hi.
We look at my report here, just some of the standard statistics here. Number 3, though, at the last meeting, I was away. There was some discussion, just providing some update here. I had spoken with Solicitor Diamond with this. He's looking at some options. We'll want to discuss that more internally before we approach council. However, the update with these sheds are the Middletown Youth Club and the Middletown Area Baseball Association have not applied. I have not been given confirmed dates from the Middletown Area Baseball Association as I had prior. There's been delays and no definitive date at that point. So
Now, did that change? Because I thought when we last spoke,
they were hoping to get it that
yeah,
weekend.
we thought they were on track.
Yeah, they were hoping
Okay,
to get it
so that
that weekend, and then I
Okay.
haven't heard anything lately. So, so we're still on hold with that one and not hearing anything from the other. So that's the update with the sheds. Looking at number 4, the zoning hearing board has a meeting scheduled to hear 36 West Roosevelt this Thursday, the 17th. They are looking for setback variances to build a single-family home on that empty parcel lot. And we are continuing to work with our solicitor for all the other forms and agreements and ordinances.
Yeah, and I did hand out a rough draft, very rough, on the landlord-tenant possible ordinance that Jason and I were working through.
Yep. And I'll have things ready for our solicitor.
Not ready for advertising or anything.
No.
Okay. So Jason, what is the what are the options with these sheds? Is the Middletown Area Youth Club, did they disband?
No.
I saw a public post stating that the football and cheerleading was not happening.
Oh, but the organization is still in existence?
Still in existence with the Department of State, and they were actually corresponding recently as if they are going to cooperate, but then they didn't follow through. But there had been activity, correspondence, not particularly definitive. You know, we plan on doing this, we'll get back, and then not following up. But we have, I guess, heard some rumors now that I guess there were things scheduled that people showed up and no one was there and that kind of stuff. So it may really be collapsing in a way we're not.
Yeah, their website states that the cheerleading and football is not happening this summer.
Oh, it actually, when we last looked at the website, it
Right, it just happened.
didn't
It
have
just
anything
came out
yesterday.
yesterday.
yesterday. Okay.
7 Stars practice.
Is this the same organization? Different one?
No, down in Fry Park.
Gotcha.
7 Stars practices there.
So I'm sorry, just to be clear, you're still looking at options that you're gonna bring to us before
Yeah,
we
and there are some
should.
things we'll have to discuss in executive session.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
But I also, there've been a couple going forward concepts discussed, like maybe we shouldn't allow private sheds and we ought to have our own, or I would think at a minimum, we should be buttoning up. No one can see, but there may be somewhere in a file written license agreements and things like that, like almost like a lease with, but right now, nobody can find documentation, and it seemed to me if we are gonna allow private sheds to be anywhere on borough property, a minimum, we should require executed agreements with everyone about their responsibilities and, removing them and keeping them.
But the ones that are not compliant, that have been not compliant for these years, or for the past however many years, you're gonna get back to us with,
In executive session, yeah.
okay,
And we'll have to look at some options of how
okay,
we wanna proceed on those. And I
gotcha.
said, I didn't realize the baseball one was,
It just
it seemed
occurred.
like that one was on track. But now we have two of them that we have to look at, so.
Any other questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jason.
Item number 8, electric report. Rob? Hi.
The points of interest remain mostly the same. We've mainly continued out at Woodland and with our pole replacements. They got the final section of roadway in at Woodland, so we're going to be busy the next couple of months pulling in our primary wire and setting transformers. Number 16, the substation update. The control building roof and fireproofing is completed. The majority of the ground grid is completed, and a lot of the steel structure on the site was installed. And the breakers that were being stored at Mud Pike were picked up and installed. Staff attended a meeting with GDS Consultants and received an update on our behind-the-meter power generation feasibility study. And we should have more information on that within the next month or so.
Yeah, I can add a little bit to that. Rob, Greg, Sally, Sydney, and I all participated in that Teams meeting yesterday with GDS and their primary consultant and the specific engineer working directly on the report. We looked at about 30 different slides that they prepared, and they wanted to talk about explain to us the things they looked at in this study, and before they finalize the report, that we can bring it into you folks and go over it with you. What we're looking at in this report is what do we do? Is there something we can do next with the available available cash we have in the trust, to, invest it in a way in some project that might help, or that would help offset future generation costs, at least in part, not in whole. We're never gonna be able to do that. But we looked at two different things. We looked at, we had them look at behind-the-meter generation. And what that is where we actually construct or work with a partner to have them construct a generation facility that will put power on our grid to offset the amount we have to buy from the PJM grid. Okay. Everybody knows we've been talking about, and the mayor's done some videos, that the PJM cost for electric is skyrocketing. We got our first new bill just the other day for June. But I'll get on that later. So this is the reason why we're looking at this. We engaged in this study. So we looked at behind-the-meter generation, and that is, okay, what types of behind-the-meter generation can you do to generate power? One is solar. You've heard us talk about that before. Another one is a generator, like a gas-fired generator that can provide power more often, more frequently, a longer term than a diesel generator. So the two behind the meters that they looked at was that, including battery. But then we looked at, we can't, if those are price prohibitive or we just don't have all the logistics to make that happen, what about peak shaving? Peak shavings, when you run a generator, some electric producing plant that we could construct in the borough here somewhere that would be turned on at specific times throughout the year to add some of our own power onto the grid, so we don't have to buy a large amount. Let's say we have the hottest day of the year coming up tomorrow. That would be a day that we would turn on a peak generator to maybe produce 5 megawatts of power from our own generator, instead of buying an extra 5 megawatts from PJM, because we normally say we buy 15 megawatts a day, but it's going to be really hot tomorrow. Sometimes we peak at 20. And anytime you peak, they use that information for next year's pricing or future pricing to set a higher price. But also when you peak that high, they have what's called a demand meter on. I know Ian understands that. And those are premium costs that you pay peak charges at those times. But if you have your own generator, like some people put solar on their house to hit those, to offset that, then you can keep your peaks down, which can save some money. So we looked at those, peaking versus our own generation. The jury's still out, but I will tell you, the whole solar thing is looking not as appetizing anymore since the big beautiful bill passed, because all the they're going away. All the subsidies are going away, and the tariffs are on now too. Another 20% tariff on that stuff. So, for example, a year ago you could have got in a purchase power agreement with a company who would build the solar field for you, and then they would own it, produce the power, and they would sell you power cheaper than you can buy it off the PJM grid. But they put a markup on it to make some money, but you still have some savings. Those kind of projects were being sold a year ago at about $84 per megawatt hour, and today they're at $127 per megawatt hour. So the margins are really slim now. So the jury's out, but we'll see what the final analysis is when we get that report. We'll go into more depth with you. But there's options out there with these either behind the meter or peaking generators where you can partner with a third party. They build it with their money, and then you just buy from them. Or you can build with your own money and own it yourself. And that would be a situation where, if you're ready to do that, where you'd want to dip into trust money to build something like that. That would be an option. don't see the one that would be an option.
Mr. Klein Peter and Rob, I actually have a question for both of you. You mentioned that if the borough had a solar system, a behind-the-meter solar system, that if we were that would allow us to produce or purchase less from PGM, correct?
Yeah.
So if residents, let's say the borough built a 5 megawatt system. Wouldn't it be the same if the residents in total had a 5 megawatts on their own private systems, and that's still 5 megawatts less that we'd have to purchase? Wouldn't it be the same?
No, because 5 megawatts is a
What-
third of town.
Okay, what I'm getting at is, if the borough has a solar system, that's less we have to purchase. But if the residents have their own solar systems and they're using their own, that's still ultimately less we have to purchase.
That's correct.
So wouldn't it behoove us to make it more economical for our residents to purchase and build and install their own generation systems? If it
What way do you mean more economic?
well, the way
I don't know what a personal home system costs.
the way the borough's ordinance is written, as it speaks, is not as competitive as some of our neighbors, such as Lois Swadera. So if you take a property in Middletown and you want to build a solar system on that property, let's just say the ROI is 10 years, take that same, because of our ordinance, take that same exact property, put in a Lois Swadera or PP&L, say PP&L territory. ROI maybe 7 years. So it's more economical for the homeowner to put that system on their house outside of the borough electric department. So MedEd, PP&L, other territories, it's more efficient and cheaper to install solar than it is in the borough because of the way our ordinance is written.
I can't agree or disagree with you, because I'm not an expert on home solar systems or what PP&L does. But I will tell you that PP&L is a large private corporate entity, much larger than our system. And they do get tax breaks from the federal government, and they also put some of their own money behind it to promote it. We're not in the same category financially as they are, because we don't have, being a public supplier, we don't have access to those federal dollars to offset that stuff.
But it would help
So
if we had to purchase less power, it would ultimately be better for the borough. The less we purchase, the
No,
better.
I wouldn't say that.
So then what's the point of?
Not that way. If we were doing it ourselves, it would be better for the borough. But if you were to say, if a third of the town were to build out in solar, or at some point there's a break point where if you have enough of that, you might as well not have a small electric system. You might as well sell the PP&L, is what I'm saying. If you're going to do that, if you wanted to have that, you might as well sell. But I would remind you that they're probably selling you electric today at all in 16 kilowatts, 16 cents per kilowatt hour, where we're 11.6. Even with the increases, we're still going to be much lower than they are. So, what Mr. Reddinger is talking about, Middletown charges a distribution charge on the power that, say, he puts a solar system on his house and generates some power and puts it back on the grid to us. We only credit him for the generation part of the energy purchase part. Say we pay 5 cents a kilowatt for the energy itself off the grid. We credit him back that, but the 5 cents we charge for distribution stays on his bill. So he's not getting credited 10 cents, he's getting credited 5. Okay. And the reason we continue to charge distribution on our 3 solar customers in the borough, 3 or 4 that we have, is because we have to be ready to supply them power. There's a cost for us giving them a bill every month. There's a cost for us turning on and off. There's a cost for us to have a wire to their house. That's where the customer service charge comes in.
So the customer service charge is different than the distribution charge.
The customer service charge is what
Is
it
to have,
costs to run a billing department, have a wire to your house,
okay,
have a transformer for 10 people in that area. All those are 1/10 of the cost of the transformer. Those are in your customer service charge. And when we did our customer service charge study, which was different than our rate study, that was done a year ago, the actual cost to us is somewhere over $30 a month in customer service charges. We're only charging $10.91 right now.
A question for you. You said that the distribution charge is for the power that a customer produces that they put back on the grid. There's the distribution charge.
Distribution charge are our costs.
Yeah, I mean, I'm talking for solar. You just, if I understood you correctly, you said that a solar customer is billed a distribution charge for the solar that they put back on the grid. My question is, if they don't put it all back on the grid and they're using it, okay, and there's not a surplus,
Right.
does that distribution charge still get applied?
I'd have to check. I don't know. I don't.
Because the way I understand it, it does. The way I understand.
It might, I'd have to check, but what the simple concept I'm trying to get everybody to understand is why the distribution charge is there, is because we have to be ready if the sun isn't shining tomorrow, because you're gonna be using all, probably, power from the borough. Or you might be using 10% of your own, solar, 90% of the borough. So some days you might be generating 100% of what you use on a very bright day.
Wouldn't that be true for the borough? So if the borough built a solar field, wouldn't they still not be on the hook for having all of the energy provided from from PGM in case the sun's not shining?
If we had our own solar field, we would still be charging residents a distribution charge to get it to you. However, you wouldn't be getting charged the energy because it's free. We wouldn't be paying somebody else 5 cents for it's free. The distribution will be our maintenance of that system and getting it to you. But we would also, more importantly, cut out the transmission charge. PGM is one of the few distribution systems in this country that allows you to bypass transmission charges. You can't do that in a lot of other places in the country. And what we're saying right now is, I'll give you an example. Energy cost that comes out of an energy plant was around 5 cents a gallon, or 5 cents per kilowatt. That's what our agreement is with PFDG. The transmission and capacity charges, which PJM puts on the line, were about 1/3 of our total bill that comes in from the outside.
So
As June, that flipped.
So
It's now 2/3 of our bill, so that it's.
If I heard you correctly, you said that if we had solar, that energy we wouldn't be charging the residents that we produced. We'd only be charging them we wouldn't charge them a distribution fee. They would get that for free?
Well, it'd be blended. We'd have to look at our rates. We'd have to have somebody do another rate study if we built something like that and say, because that's going to blend in with what we are buying from outside. It has trans. So it's complicated. It's all, there are demand charges on businesses, on industrial, and there are different rates. So it's not clear cut. If we were to build something, yeah, we'd look at that and we'd be like, what are the savings? And we'd look at the rates again, do another rate study, and kind of blend that all together so that everybody would benefit.
So is the distribution charge in the solar ordinance?
Yes.
That's where it is?
Yes, currently there is.
Okay.
Maybe you already said this, but you too. I mean, I know Council Reitinger brought up before that he was just entertaining somebody at Lowe's who was trying to, sell him to put solar on his house, and he said he lived in Middletown, and they were like, oh no, we can't do that there. So I had the same situation where I was at a Senators game, and there was about 3 different solar companies, and each one I said I live in Middletown, and they said, oh yeah, we can't do it there. So
Well, you can do it, it's just not as.
yeah,
It's not the ROI.
what is it
So I
though? What
said-
is it that's not profitable for them living in?
Because you're in PP&L territory, they're not putting the distribution charge on.
Yeah, exactly. That's the whole point I was saying is you take this house in
But if you
Middletown.
don't put the distribution charge on his solar house, and there's 4 solar homes in town, and everybody else is paying a distribution charge, he's getting his service for free when he does use it.
That's not true. I would get charged a distribution on the energy that if I
There's not any one day, 24-hour day, where you're using total solar.
correct.
It gets dark at night. And you're gonna be using our system at night, at some
And-
point every day you're
correct.
gonna be using our system.
And when I do use the system, or when a solar resident would use the system, they would be billed a distribution charge for the energy that they consume. Okay? What we're doing is we're putting a meter after the array before the panel.
What we're doing is not wrong. you don't like it, you don't agree with it.
I don't agree with it.
Council, as a whole doesn't agree, we can have the engineers come in and look at the ordinance and see what it means to take that off. But what I'm saying is, if we eliminate the distribution charge from those 3 or 4 people who are doing solar now and go to maybe 20 people, get it, because it's still expensive. The rest of the town is gonna subsidize those 20 people for the cost to come out there and hang the wires back up when they fall down in the land.
I disagree because that's a
replacing the
service charge.
transformer.
That's a service charge.
No, I'm talking about on your street. You're using the wires that come down the street from the plant, right?
Yeah.
So you're not paying anything toward that when we call out his guy.
Anytime,
'Cause that's where our fees are.
any time that a solar customer is getting power from the grid, they are getting billed a distribution fee, correct? We're also charging a distribution fee on power generated by the solar system that is not hitting the transmission lines. It's almost a penalty, the way I see it, because that energy's not hitting the grid. It's not
The
hitting.
way you see it, and the engineers who designed our rate ordinance don't see it that way.
McNeese, I believe, wrote the ordinance.
The ordinance was written by a lawyer, it didn't go to a rate engineer to write that?
If memory serves me correct, McNeese was our solicitor at the time, and McNeese and Greg drafted our ordinance.
Well, I'm telling you, recently, when we looked at the solar ordinance, last year, we sent all that ordinance to an engineering firm to look at it.
The one that was just here?
Yeah,
Because I asked him in executive session if he looked at it, and he had no idea about it.
well, that's because it wasn't him, it was somebody else in the firm.
Do we know for the other municipalities in the Commonwealth that have their own department, how do their solar ordinances compare to ours?
Well, if you go to a public one, like, Chambersburg or, Ephrata, you're probably gonna see them very similar to ours. I can't say they all are, there's like 30.
Yeah, I think there's 32.
Public
Yeah.
32 in the state, I don't know if they're all the same, but.
So Ken, how
But it's something we can look at and see if you wanna change it.
so then how is you said Lower City or PPL, how are they getting away with it? Is that just because they're making so much more money that they're?
They're connected to a private enterprise. They're not connected to a public system. This is a publicly owned system. You own, and everybody else in this room owns this distribution system.
Yeah, those utilities, they get money from the feds essentially, because they're corporations that are taxed, and, they get credits. So they actually have a source of funds where they can subsidize those. So that's,
Gotcha.
and even some of the energy saving appliances and things, they can kick out rebate where you wouldn't be able to get those.
So it's a matter of choice. I mean, the benefits of public power are, you get guys responding a lot sooner than they do out in Londonderry Township when they're remote. There's only 10 people out. They might be waiting 3 days to get the power on when there's a big problem. Here you don't. Here you get other benefits from public power. We've got a crew of professionals who not only can keep your electric onto your house, you're getting free streetlights all through the town. Lower Swiftwater can't afford to put streetlights in their community. We can, because of public power. And that's just a couple. I mean, we could go on, from hanging banners to pulling our own underground in for a development that we don't have to pay somebody else to do.
So why there are no streetlights out there?
Mm-hmm.
I always wondered.
I didn't know that.
Thank you. I always wondered that. It's good to know.
They pay for every hydrant out there too. It's private water. So there are benefits to it. So there's trade-offs. Here's one of those trade-offs that isn't as good is the solar ordinances. In the big companies.
Ultimately, I don't think it would put a burden on the borough. Figure 65% of the borough is owned by, or is tenants, and landlords and tenants aren't putting solar on their properties. So.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of landlords are gonna put solar on their building.
So even if you have, say, 40% of the population of Middletown it would make sense to put solar, what's the real percentage of that 40% that's actually gonna do it? 5, 6%. So I don't see it, that demand charge not being there. I don't see being like, oh my God, this is going to tank our electric revenue. scenario. It's just, I don't see it. In full disclosure, I'm putting a solar system on my house, but you gotta remember, I can do it for a fraction of the cost as a homeowner. And the system I'm putting on my house would cost another Middletown resident close to 70 grand.
Right.
So the benefit, you know, I have the luxury to be able to do it because I own an electrical company.
Right.
And I'm trying to get out ahead of these rate increases. I would just love to see the Middletown residents be able to go to a Trinity Solar that goes to Home Depot or these senators again and sell solar systems and make it economical for them to put solar on their house.
Yeah, so speaking of the rate increases, you know, I talked about the study and looking at behind the meter versus peak shaving, the options we're gonna look at. The scary part is the predictions we're seeing with this PJM business. You know, Governor Shapiro has been able to negotiate an artificial cap on the PGM this year and next year. He put a cap on it. They can't charge any more than what you're seeing proposed in our retail rate. However, that cap comes off in 2027. And the chart that you're going to see, the bar chart that you're going to see when this report comes out, what our engineers are anticipating looks like this with PGM over the next 20 years. I mean, it just doesn't come back.
So when do you expect to have the report?
I'd say within 30 to 45 days. I mean, I'll hear from them within 2 weeks and we'll go over it again, but till we can arrange them to come in from, I think they come out of Atlanta. So we'll have them here this summer.
And any project that, or long-term solution that council would be interested in, what's the turnaround on something like that? Or I guess it's kind of hard to say.
Yeah, I don't know yet. We'll have to approach that when we settle in on it. It depends on what we're going to do. And for that, we'll probably have to talk to the suppliers of the equipment to see what the lead time is on that stuff. But I guess, you know, I can tell you this. The turnaround time's a lot quicker probably bringing in a peak shaving generator than it is building a solar field somewhere and finding property and building transmission lines, which that project would take longer than.
In the generator, you mentioned gas, but I wonder if it'd be more economical to go like propane, like natural gas, or when you say gas.
I'm talking about natural gas.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm
sorry because I just said gas. But we're talking natural gas because these types of generators, they call them RICE generators.
Yep.
They're internal combustion.
Yep.
They can run long periods of time and basically kind of act like a solar field. It gives you a long-term energy. But they need to be hooked up to 70 psi gas. And our engineers looked, the closest one they could find where you can hook up to 70 psi gas in that volume, large of a line, is 10 miles away.
Wow.
But
Down Lancaster somewhere. And it's to build a transmission line underground from 10 miles away, you're probably talking $3 million a mile.
really?
Yeah. Jesus. $30 million probably to get it here. Unless, you know, we can reach out to UGI and see if there's something closer, but, you know, when I first saw, I thought that would be my preference to build something like that.
Would UGI subsidize some of that cost knowing that they're going to get that revenue from the gas?
We don't know if they have the infrastructure and the pressure.
I'm just asking.
What's the other option? Diesel? Is that what you said?
Diesel is for peak shaving. You don't run that maybe like 8 hours in a day, and then you don't run them for maybe till you need them again for a month when the peaks are going to be. So you might only run that 20 times a year to shave peaks on.
And the thing that you two are
A RICE generator's like is to give you an extra 5 megawatts routinely.
Same thing, different fuel source.
Yeah.
In a nutshell.
Right.
Same thing, different fuel source.
But then your savings are offset by the cost of the gas.
Yeah, where we're at right now, fracking gas is going down. It's more economical than probably getting it from the grid.
The footprint's smaller than a solar.
Which is also like if we do have an outage, I mean you're just pumping it yourself.
Yeah.
There's really you're not even, which is huge.
So when we get to that point, like I say, I'm going to have to bring the professionals in because this is, as you can see, you know, all the different things. It's a little complicated for the layperson, you know, just how billing's done and,
It's complicated for me.
yeah.
Speaking of that, can you give me the for dummies version? Why is this happening? Like, is this a government
This
agency?
is a
doing this?
supply and demand issue. This is my opinion. Well, it's the opinion of many, but it's been a mistake, a great mistake of the federal government not to have a very robust energy policy for many years. And they've been focused on the environment and shutting down gas plants and retiring coal plants and trying to push everybody to green energy. And they don't do it fast enough. So they're retiring plants very fast because they're, you know, the investors who own them like, well, I'm not going to shut down this coal plant because I can't put $200 million in this plant to put filters on it. So I'm just going to shut it down. We'll invest in something else and we'll raise the rate, you know, on the other plants we have. And that's where we're at. Now, that's on the supply side. On the demand side, these data centers from AI are going in really fast, and they're consuming huge blocks of power. That's why you see TMI opening back up, because Microsoft needs it just for their data center. They need that whole nuclear facility for their data center.
And none of that's coming to middle.
No, it's all going to Microsoft.
Did Londonderry improve the data centers?
I don't know if that's been
No.
approved yet.
Is
Been
it?
continued to next month.
But see, that, I mean, technology in terms of AI and everything else that we use, from battery drills and battery cars to battery vacuum cleaners, everything runs on a battery now. Everybody has stuff plugged in from phones. Hardly anybody has a landline. Phones are plugged in. Computers are running all the time. Your flat screen TVs draw power all the time, even when they're not on, unlike the old tube TVs that didn't draw power until you turned them on. Everything's drawing power. And we want this new technology to do all these things. It's just not residents, it's businesses that are going to all these new technologies. Huge power.
Yeah, the data centers are massive electric users.
So that's been the
More than
mistake of the
towns.
energy industry and the,
Yes.
you know, the industry, supply goes up and they don't have, demand goes up and on the supply, they just charge more money. It's, it's a commodity that's traded in Wall Street. You're gonna pay for it. Until the government comes in and says, okay, we gotta do something about this. We gotta build more plants, we gotta make them easier to get the permits, to build them faster.
So is this is a government agency increasing this?
This is the policy of the United States government. They didn't have a comprehensive one. Their comprehensive one was, by this date, every car's gotta be battery. By this date, you gotta do this, you gotta get rid of, it was all getting rid of these things by date, but at the same time, private industry is coming up with all kinds of things that require more power.
But you made my point. You literally said it's not until government comes in and deregulates and makes it easier to build things. We are the government, and that's what I'm saying. Let's make it easier for our residents to build things. The point that I literally was just making, once government comes in.
Requires what you're talking about to make it easier for people to build things. You just said about $70,000, didn't you, to put solar on? We're not big enough to subsidize that even on one house in Middletown.
Yeah, I'm not saying the borough should be subsidizing. What I'm getting at is that $70,000, the ROI may be 12 year versus 7 years. It's not the borough's handing residents money.
But because we're so small, if you go with a philosophy like that, I don't know, we have to talk to the engineer. What's the break point where it doesn't pay us to be in business anymore? Because we're landlocked, small town, 9,000 people, unlike, what PP&L's base is huge.
Like you said, we have 3 people in the borough of Middletown with solar. I think the whole whopping 15 in the borough of Middletown is not going to break the system.
It's not, it just becomes a philosophical argument then.
Last thing here, number 18.
Mike's getting tired up there, Steve.
Yeah.
Oh, Rob's up there.
Shoot.
Welcome, Rob, to your first meeting.
6 outages since the last report.
You had 6 out.
3 squirrels. 2 of the locations have been updated with fiberglass brackets and coated wire.
Rob,
And
may
the
I
other is
ask
on
a
the
quick
schedule to be
question?
done.
I'm sorry, may I ask a quick question about the out? So a couple of weeks ago, there were 2 outages,
Yes.
but the call center thought it was just 1 outage.
Yeah, I think
Have you worked with the call center to come up with a better?
Yeah, I think Grace got that fixed now.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
And the other 3, 2 of them were failed lightning arresters and 1 failed fuse link. All of those have been replaced. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Item number 9, finance report. Sally?
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
I don't have anything unusual on my report. The only item that I wanted to point out was that on the 2026 budget timeline, the adoption of the final budget was on November 19th, but we're going to move it back to November 18th, which is our regular council meeting. So a revised budget timeline is on there.
Okay.
You may have any questions? I think on the record.
Woo! Take it. We'll take it.
Item number 11, highway report. Matt?
Fine job, Rob. Good evening.
Hi, Matt.
Couple of little items on there. I believe you received Prime Manor color renderings on there for the proposed equipment. I did reach out to Ziegler, still awaiting information regarding coloring and costs and treating various mulches and so forth.
Thank you for reaching out.
Sure, you're welcome. We began the downtown crosswalks yesterday. 3 of 16 are completed. So they're making good progress with that as long as they don't get rained on every 20 minutes. It's making it a little difficult. We will schedule Briarcliff once the downtown crosswalks are completed. I prioritize the crosswalks primarily just because it's a safety issue with the way that the pavers are breaking out. We will start having summer crews paint the crosswalks throughout town. Should be starting after Briarcliff is completed. And highway will be filling a part-time position that is budgeted in the 2025 budget. It'll be a 28-hour-a-week employee is what we're looking for. The only action item I had was I would recommend, since it was recent and I believe most people liked it, that we go with same colors for Fry as we have for Overdeer.
Consistent? Consistent's good?
Yeah.
Looks great.
Yeah, there aren't sunshades, so there won't be the massive blue things down there, but yeah, we can just go with the same color palette.
Sounds good.
Man, I
Sounds
noticed
good.
that there were people expressing on Facebook when the site just saw that there were downtown, so tell the guys to keep up. They look really nice. Thank you, I did see that. It's nice to get the positive. So,
They
thank
do look
you.
very nice.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, the ones here in the parking lot are getting beat up. I think there's too much radiant heat between the 2 parking lots for them. They get watered the same as all the others, and they're just not doing well.
So, someone design them, or like, do you?
We get them from a nursery. They do it all for us, and yeah, they just bring them. We can tell, we can ask to change things.
Makes sense.
But they kind of,
They did a very nice job this year,
thank you. I'll let them know.
Goes to the baseball
and you're doing a great job keeping them alive.
You're gonna make a handicap.
Cody and Peyton have been doing a fine job in handling watering duties.
Yeah, they
Very
really do.
Yeah,
They really do.
thank you.
Hey, man. It's called common sense.
Is that the twirly in there? Yeah, right here.
One handicap's parking spot.
Thanks, Matt.
The other thing I had, there's this in there also. You had asked for an overall plan rendering. I don't have the tools to make something look very pretty, so I did it in paint.
but it kind of gives the layout. You can see the blue rectangle would be where the new playground will be approximately. We'll figure it all out once we look at grades and everything else. As discussed, the orange would be a paved pathway that Public Works would install to provide ADA access back to the park itself. And we were looking at doing a much smaller access path. There's a road you can see on the top there that comes down out of Harborton Estates there, and there's already like a pathway between two of the trees there. So we may create a little access over there as well for users of that complex or that facility to use. And then just the green dots were, if you recall, we had a big part of an oak tree go down, and it wiped out one of electric department's poles, and it also took out a bunch of the arborvitaes that were there. So put some other ones back in there to keep that green, visual, natural looking barrier.
Matt, question for you. This orange walkway, roughly how long is that?
Ooh,
I bet that's 100 feet.
oh, it's more than that.
Much more than 100 feet.
Yeah,
You realize this park has one handicap parking space, and it's out there by your yellow, the yellow gate that you have. So our ADA residents are gonna have to park in that one handicap spot and truck down a few hundred feet. I'm just asking.
as it stands now, yeah.
Okay, all right.
Could you pave a pull up there and put a handicap sign near that?
Yeah, I mean, we could do,
There is a handicap parking space where that yellow.
on the access road to get back to the well.
Do you have any
There's an ADA space back in there.
room like halfway that you could make one, maybe?
Well, I don't really
I was
want.
talking about where the chain is.
Yeah,
If you could push the chain back and have a place there that somebody could pull in with a handicap sign.
I talked about that like a year ago about putting 2-3 spaces there, so that elderly people would have a much shorter access, or disabled people would have much shorter
Instead of coming down the
access.
sidewalk from the other
Yeah,
end.
instead of coming down that whole.
That would make it nicer.
Oh, even this road here, I mean, I guess that's not ours. There's like
Yeah, that's in the park. That's private.
Hmm.
That's in
That's
Harborton.
the trail up here.
yes. Yep, I can measure that and see what we can fit in out there.
Good practice with the pavement.
Now, where do we leave it at Woody Waste with the fees and the thoughts? Is there an action step there, or are you waiting for our direction with all that?
Yeah, I believe, what we were looking at was limiting the number of trips, seeing where that goes for 2026, and if we're still having problems with material, then we may look at potentially limiting external non-Middletown users. Was kind of at the last I recalled, we were looking at kind of a two-pronged approach to see if the limiting users this year, but still being allowed open to the current users of the adjoining municipalities who purchase cars, rather than making them scramble. Yeah, but it's really in council's decision on how you would like to go. I mean, I would recommend, we talked about 10 visits. I would do the 10 visits. We implement that for 2026, and we use 2026 as a test year to see how it goes.
I think this comes down to what council decides as a whole, and just for the record, I would love to see it just for Middletown residents. I don't want to limit Middletown residents. That's kind of where I stand on this issue. So, however we proceed, I'm for Middletown when it comes to that.
I second that.
Is there any other info you would want? I think we hashed it out pretty good, probably 2 or 3 workshops ago. I think I would just need some consensus on which direction we want to go. I know it wasn't on the agenda this evening.
I think, I understand that's their position, but I think the consensus still is we're gonna try that for 2026, and if we need to assess and make a change, we will, so.
Yep.
We
We
need
should
that,
just proceed.
That's
something
what I
more
think.
formalized, Ken.
Yeah. How much was pulled out for that little project that went on out there?
From the material that was hauled away,
Yeah,
I believe they took out 8 triaxle loads.
8 triaxles. That's pretty much.
They were coal beds too, so they were high trucks. It was,
Yeah.
yeah. They were probably at weight rather than size. It took out a lot, but we still, I mean, it's growing again.
Is it?
Matt, have you had any communication with some of our neighbors like Losadair, Londonderry, Royalton? Do those municipalities and their communities use mulch for like their parks, their government buildings?
I would imagine that they do.
I mean, if globally, I think it's a win-win-win for everybody if we're able to dye it and be able to give it away. I think it benefits everybody. Let everybody use as much as they want, dye it and give as much away as possible. But if we do have the ability to dye it, I wonder if we could give back to Londonderry, Losadair, colored mulch for them to use at their facilities, and maybe that helps get rid of some of our surplus. Kind of, we're taking it from their residents, we're gonna refine it, make it, essentially give it back to their communities for their parks, playgrounds, and municipal buildings.
I think creating the colored mulch, I'll have.
It's
someone
more work for
spend-
you, I know.
I'll have someone spending a lot more time.
It's
on it.
more work, I know, it is more work.
No, I would love to, I mean, I did find an article online, and the one thing said, for equipment similar to our grinder was about $110,000, and I don't think we would ever recoup that money in any way, shape, or form, to create colored mulch, especially if we just give it away. I think at that point, we're digging a hole deeper than what we're already in.
Wouldn't we have to treat it as well?
That's what I'm waiting to hear. I gave Zegers a list. There was about 6 or 7 questions I asked him on there. One of it was, as soon as it's created, where does it have to be stored until the dye sets? Because if it gets rained on right away, the dye washes right off of the mulch until it sets. Find out if they covered it, find out if they have to windrow it to let it cure. Windrowing is typically how you kill the weed seeds and things. It gets hot enough, it kills the seeds.
Yeah.
Windrowing takes a lot of space. You
Right.
have to turn it on
a regular basis.
It's done by temperature. You take the temperature and you turn it based on temperature and everything else. It's hard. Even like with the colored mulch solution, if we start creating additional piles of finished goods, we still have more piles that we don't have a lot of room for out there. That's the difficult thing with that. We're already pinched on space, and if we have to make a couple other types of piles, it's gonna get really tight really fast.
Yeah, that's definitely an undersized property for that, even the operation that's going on now. I've seen it in other municipalities like Mechanicsburg, and they probably have 5 times that space.
Ours was 15 acres at Lower Paxton.
Yeah.
It was 15 acres was our site.
Well, I mean, where they're just grinding and not
Right.
windrowing.
Right.
The one in Mechanicsburg at the treatment plant's 5 times that size.
Yeah.
They grind it and then they use it in their biosolids, so they don't have to windrow it, but just their piles from grinding and raw is much bigger than our site.
Yeah, it's a bulky commodity.
And Zegers is going out of business.
I don't know if that has been guaranteed yet, but I believe it's probably 99% factual. They'll stay in business for the wood carpet. Last I had heard, they're looking to relocate their wood carpet business because apparently they're one of the few that does it in a large multi-state area, and they want to keep that business stream. But I think by getting rid of the mulch is what takes up a lot of their place, with people bringing in raw material, all the raw material sitting around, then it gets ground, then you have all the piles of everything else sitting around and dealing with the mulch. I think the wood carpet's much easier for them, and it's in and out process pretty quickly. I can draft up I think we hand out something now when the residents come in to get their cards. There's a couple different vibes at the table, and I just need to make sure that the direction we're going is we're good with that. And then we can make the whole rules that you're limited to your 10 trips a year, and we go from there. We don't need to really tell people it's a test year. If they come to a meeting or hear it, that's fine, but I won't put that on
And
the
if I
paper.
remember, the reason we decided to go in the direction we're doing and not have to rethink it is an understanding that working with other municipalities, while it created more mulch, the trade-off was, when it comes to partnering around grants, there's an advantage there. So, if I recall, that's why we are going to, please, can't we just commit and not stop
Yeah.
revisiting this?
Yeah,
Just say, that's what we're gonna try for 2026. Try it. If it works, great. If it doesn't, we'll rethink
Well,
it.
I think
But
there's one,
it's just,
there's,
let's go.
there's one small flaw in that. And I think if we're gonna go down that road, I think it should be 10 trips per property and not per person. Because if you have an entity in the borough that owns multiple properties, they are severely penalized. Is
Well,
that
we didn't
ridiculous?
think of that.
How's that
We did-
ridiculous?
No,
You have say a company like Jared Knopp who owns 15 properties in the borough, and he gets 10 trips. He can't even do one trip per property. And then you have Pat Lister who has one property and he gets 10 trips. Does that have any common sense? That's just plain stupidity. It's not common
Are
sense.
you done?
No, I'm not done. I think if we're gonna go down that route, we should. I'm fine with the experiment, but it should be per resident and not per person to accommodate people in the borough
mean
that
per
own
property.
multiple properties.
Per property, not per resident.
If that's what you want to do,
We
I'm with
hadn't thought of that, at least that I don't recall that in our conversations. You know, there might be some thought to that if someone, like you, as an example,
it.
someone.
I own like 4 properties in the borough myself. But I get
I'd
10.
put it on the agenda for the next business meeting, we can vote on it.
Okay.
We'll just write up a motion as, limited to 10 visits per card, and you can buy 1 card per property that you own.
There you go.
Yeah.
Maybe that's just it, yeah, we didn't think of that.
Yeah, that works. Okay. Anyone have any other additional things for me? You'll see the crosswalks. We'll finish all the crosswalks, the pavers coming out, and then I'll just have the striping company come in all at one time, rather than having them. It'll be less money than having them come in and do a couple at a time.
Okay.
So, but yeah, the guys got 2 done today, so it moves quick when the weather's nice.
All right.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody.
Thank
Your
you.
address sign looks nice for show.
Thank
you. Your address sign at your house looks nice.
Oh, the one about Savannah?
You have a little address sign in your yard.
Oh, okay, thanks.
Item number 13, police report. Hi, Dan.
Hello, everybody. How are we doing tonight?
Fantastic.
Few points on here. This isn't a borough issue, but there was an officer-involved shooting in Steelton on July 6th. We helped out on that call for a couple hours that night. The point of interest, though, is the following day, the mayor and/or the borough shuttered a business based on the risk to public safety. Didn't know that was something that could be done. I've never heard of it happening before. I mean, they ordered a business closed.
Yeah,
Based on the risk to public
What
safety.
was the
I
kind
saw
of
that.
business?
I think it was a hookah bar.
Yeah, it was a bar.
Just doesn't need any type of immediate research or attention, but I don't think we have anything that would even come to that at this particular point, but knowing we have that authority to do something like that, if we ever were in a similar situation, would be nice to know. So, I mean, it's a borough. They did it. Not quite sure how they did it, but they did it. So,
Yeah, I wondered that too.
just food for thought. We had a trash can fire in Hoffer Park. Turns out it was some expended fireworks. It does not appear that it was intentionally lit on fire. We had a call for some fireworks in the park. We got down there. There was nobody using any kind of fireworks.
We didn't see any remains of fireworks. It looks like they were, good citizens after they broke the law and put their used fireworks in the trash can. Caught on fire, so. We had a dog bite incident also that was on Ratchet News. If any of you might have seen that, we had an individual who was walking two dogs who attacked each other. And he was injured trying to break up the dogs. One got free after the assault. They were ultimately wrangled. They were pretty uncooperative with the investigation. We ended up taking the one dog to a local emergency location for treatment. But in case any of you saw that on the news, that gentleman's going to be charged for some dog law violations. We also had an incident where an employee of the M&H or H&M M&H Railroad was assaulted.
Really?
He was doing some track work, and there was an individual walking a dog on the tracks. Turns out to be the exact same individual in the video.
Oh gosh.
Oh, really?
And he approached the individual and said, "Sir, you're on private property. You can't walk your dog along the tracks." And the guy sucker punched him. So he received some injuries. An officer tonight is in the process of typing up a warrant. We identified him through some local video, and with the help of the public, you might have seen a Crime Watch post where I put out an attempt to identify this guy. So we received quite a few phone calls from the public on who the individual was. He's being charged for that also. So again, he was walking his dog along the tracks and was just asked to, hey, don't do this anymore. I think that's all I have. Does anybody have any questions or anything?
Yeah, I got a question for you. There was a picture of two people at a mailbox around the corner from my house.
Yes.
What was the deal with that?
There were some kids who were opening people's mailboxes who weren't home at the time.
Oh, so they were going through the mailbox.
We're not sure what they were doing. We don't have anybody who's lost mail. We identified the kids and had an intervention with their family, so hopefully it's done. Hopefully the issue's been resolved. That wasn't on our post. That was, I believe, a public post of some type.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I saw it. A friend of mine showed it to me, and I kept saying, I know that porch. And
Yeah, it was on Ann Street, I believe.
no, it was on Market Street.
Okay.
It was on Market Street. It was down around the corner from my house.
Okay. Yeah, they were identified.
Yeah. Okay.
All good? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dan.
Number 14, joint venture of Veolia. Sydney, if you can note they're not present. And item number 15, council.
I have something. You want me to go first?
No, I was gonna say that.
Oh,
you
okay.
have something about that.
I believe most people at the table are aware that the borough will not have use of the Santa House for the festivities this coming November. So about 2 weeks ago, Council President Miller and I had a conversation on the phone about what we could do as an alternative. So I received a quote. Based on our conversation, I called this Spruce Ridge Reindeer LLC company. And this is a proposal where they will bring in 2 reindeer and a sleigh for Santa Claus to sit in for the event. I bring it up now because obviously, similar to the fireworks, you have to put money down to hold the date. I know it's out in November, but if we're going to act, we're going to have to act soon. The cost for the event is $2,400. That includes the reindeer, that includes the sleigh. And if the council is so inclined to move in this direction, the cost is already covered.
Real quick, what's going on with the Santa House? Can someone fill me in, please?
I don't know why it's not coming to Middletown, but that's what I know.
Well, this is news to me, but as one of the volunteers that helped build and fund that, I'm extremely disappointed and saddened to hear that. And I honestly
Same.
have no idea. I don't know what's going on. This is news to me. It's the first I'm hearing of it. I find that extremely disappointing.
Me too.
What did you say is coming instead of the Santa house?
Well, we have to approve. It
No,
sounds like
what is in place of the Santa house?
Reindeer and a sleigh.
Reindeer and a sleigh.
For the tree lighting event.
Correct.
More for Santa.
Yeah.
How much would it cost to build a Santa house?
We've done it twice.
I've done it twice. It costs a good bit of money.
Like more than that?
Yeah.
But keep in mind that's compounding, because if you're going to do that, you're going to do it every year. 2 years in, you're $5,000. You know, it just keeps.
This cost for this year is covered. I have a donation for this amount. If you want to do this, it's paid for.
And who donated?
I have a donation for that amount.
And who donated?
I'm not
It's
getting into that
anonymous?
now. Yeah, I'm not getting into it now. If you want it, they'll write the check.
I have a question.
Sure.
I did bring up a sleigh
Yes,
in
you
that
did.
conversation. I did not bring up reindeer.
No, I know that.
Okay. I don't know anything about reindeer.
I know. You brought up the sleigh, which I thought was a good idea. I brought up
Is
the
there a
reindeer.
liability with the reindeer? And if that is going on to church property?
It's not.
Oh, okay. I wanted to make sure they were okay with it.
No, by state law, the reindeer aren't allowed to be on a surface like grass.
Oh.
What do they do in the wild?
For this, I mean, she even.
And who enforces it in the wild? I want to know this. I want to know this.
What'd you say?
Who
Yeah,
enforces
they have to be on
keep off
on the pavement.
grass?
They have to be on what?
On the pavement.
Oh.
Some legislator
They bring-
somewhere came up with a ridiculous law
A ridiculous law, what?
that reindeer aren't allowed to be on grass.
Well, we'll still have the tree there.
Yes,
Well, where? Oh,
and they
I
bring
mean-
also they bring all the
what the?
enclosure and all of that.
I mean, if someone's willing to donate.
Oh, they're not hooked to the sleigh?
The one will be in the enclosure. The other one will be available for pictures with Santa Claus in the sleigh and next to the sleigh. Yes.
Does he have a red nose, the one that's on it?
Yeah, right.
I support it.
I
I support it. What is?
Someone's donating and oh god. Michelle doesn't like it.
Well,
So we
my
need.
middle name's Scrooge.
One of the reasons he's asking if you're on board with it, because you know, as a donor on the hook, if you say yes, is they need to hold it, you know, they want a down payment up front.
Right.
Half the money. And like we did with the fireworks before Jim did it. Last year and this year, we fronted the down payment money, and then when the money came in, we put it back in the account.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
In the borough. So, that's why he's asking to.
Where does Santa Claus going?
I don't know.
Is that something we wanna do this year, council?
It would have my vote if it came to the table.
Do you have time to put it on the agenda, or are you looking for somebody to give you the green light now? Or?
It would be a shame if you decided that you wanted to do it and then the date's booked by someone else.
Oh, I see, yeah. So we'd essentially be ratifying it if you needed it before, to put money out before,
It'd be
the August meeting.
$1,075 to hold the date.
Just out of curiosity, this private donor, couldn't they just directly coordinate? Why does it have to be through the borough?
I don't know. I didn't have that in-depth conversation. I just simply said, if I bring this to Borough Council and they want to do it, will you write a check to the borough to cover the amount? And the answer was
I mean, ultimately, the borough never even really dealt with the Santa Claus house. It was a private organization.
no, but this is going to fall under our insurance with the event.
Whose insurance did it fall under before with the Santa Claus house?
It all was under ours.
The boroughs.
It's a borough event.
Yeah, this is a little different. This is like live animals, not
We
just
do-
a little
we do
house.
the sleigh rides the same way, don't we? That
Yeah,
was
we have
all-
live horses at the
Yeah,
event.
but they aren't live animals that are in a pen that kids are gonna be going up to.
They-
I mean,
The kids cannot go in the pen.
no, I know
And
that.
it's like over 6 foot tall.
No. So, okay, so
Mm.
now we're gonna have a 6-foot pen with a reindeer in it, so what's the point of having it then?
Well, you have one in the enclosure, and you have one with Santa Claus with a handler.
So do we have
That's
to
the one in the
ratify
enclosure for
this?
just to look at while the other.
Yeah, they have one that they're looking at until you get up to take the picture with the one that's at the sleigh.
Do we have to ratify this tonight?
Oh my gosh.
No,
People,
no,
this is like, you know, either want something in place of it. We don't have the sand house. This is an option I'm giving you. I discussed it with Miss Miller, and it's paid for.
Miss
I will.
Miller?
I'm okay with the sleigh. I don't know anything about reindeer.
Mhm.
I mean, I don't know.
You had 6 horses there last year that are much bigger than reindeer.
Dan's gonna be there with his taser to make sure they don't go on the grass. And if they do, he's gonna drop them. Just saying.
I would like the end of the circus parade, I'll have a shovel too.
So this is in lieu of the horses? We want-
No,
Oh, this is in addition to it.
yeah. This is simply so there's a place for Santa Claus to sit,
Gotcha.
and it adds something to the event.
I see.
So you can still take a carriage.
Yes, there'll still be your 6 horses and 3 carriages.
What's the company called? I think I wanna look it up.
Spruce Ridge Reindeer, LLC.
It's, where are they based out of? Just kind of curious.
Albrightsville, Pennsylvania.
That's the that's the Pocono. That's where.
That's where your paintball would
Yeah,
come
yeah.
in.
That's where it was at.
What was it, Spruce Ridge, what?
LLC.
That's it. Is it correct, Jim? Is that Pocono's the sound?
I think so.
Yep. It's there.
Oh, good lord.
How long are they there?
5 to 8.
5 to 8?
It's 2 hours for them to get here. It's a good 2
I'm
hours.
Sure.
So they got 4 hours of travel. Actually,
Listen, I can just speak from personal experience. You go to Hershey Park Candy Lane, they have reindeers there. The line to see the frickin' reindeers is forever long. The kids love it. They sit in that line for over an hour just to go see the reindeer. And oh my God, you don't touch them. They're way back. I mean, this seems like an obvious opportunity for me. It's free. It's going to be in our town. The community will love it. We don't have a Santa house. For God.
yeah, you have to pay to get in.
That's true.
I,
That's true.
I've never
Yeah.
been to Candy Lane.
You'd love it. They have sweets. They have lights.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe you like it.
No, I don't think so.
What are we doing with this? Are we voting on it, or?
I don't think we can vote on it
Can't
tonight
vote
'cause it's
on
not
it
on the
tonight.
agenda. But
Yeah.
if I'm saying if it comes to the table for a vote, I vote for it.
And my question was, if you are for it, and you want to get the check out the door ahead of time, you could, if we have more than a majority, a supermajority, say we're for it, you could direct the check and ratify it at the August meeting. If you wanted to do that. Or if you just wanna wait till there's a vote in August, then contact the company after August 3rd or whatever it is, or 4th. It's up to you.
I spoke.
Well, you could just pull around the table, who's for, who's against. Not, well, an unofficial, show, if you want, or if you just wanna wait till the business meeting, we'll wait for the business meeting.
I would strongly advise not doing that.
Looks good.
I'm good. Pat's good.
I'm good.
You're good?
Mhm.
There's 4. There's 5.
Okay.
All right.
We got 5, we can just move forward, as long as the 5 are gonna be here in August and ratify it.
You
All right.
will or you won't?
I'll give this to you, Sally. I'll give you this.
Is there anything else that council has?
I actually have some, so if you remember, I was directed to have an ordinance, for the electric chapter change, and then a matching resolution, and, we were supposed to have it the last meeting. Ken was right before that, before he went away, found that, the plan to do we were supposed to do a resolution initially, and then found that some of the changes that were gonna be made for the future rates were in the ordinance, so we had to do 2 steps of the ordinance, which is advertised for the next meeting, cause we didn't have time before the next meeting. I had worked up a resolution and, was really having difficulty with, trying to put all the wording in the resolution. Sally and I went back and forth with some things. We, ended up getting that DGS, the consultants, so we didn't mess it up, to put for the resolution all of the rates into a little schedule, and now I did a different resolution that you have in your packs that would be after the ordinance, that simply incorporates by reference that list, just,
Okay.
so that's one of the things I handed out today, or I guess, it might have been in your pack already today, but just so you know what that is, that goes with that.
Okay.
That's it.
That's it. Okay, is there anyone else?
Mhm. In the corner.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Now is the time of general public comment.
Tom Kmark, 652 Hoffer. I've got pictures of the flooding behind our houses from yesterday and in June. The catch basins are collapsing. I don't know if the sewer's too small or what's going on. Can we have somebody come out and check on that?
Sure.
What was your last name again, Mr.?
Kaymark.
652 Hoffer.
Yep.
If you, wanna leave us, a phone number, we can come out and check on it and call you when we're gonna be out there, and you could talk to our
I already
public
talked
works.
to him once. He came out last year.
Okay.
Did we, at that time last year, did we have those scoped? Didn't we?
Don't think so.
Yeah,
No,
we
Matt,
did.
Matt,
Matt,
You had a company scope them.
I was there. I was standing there. I watched him do it. Can you please get the video and at least get it in our emails, our inboxes, or thumb drive of that? It can't be that massive. It's like 500 feet of pipe. But
Massive for an email, you mean,
thumb drive.
thumb drive, we got thumb drive, Chris has thumb drive.
Are the catch basins fixed?
No. 658, Mark and Kathy's is collapsing. Mine's collapsing, and 640 George, I don't know what his looks like. But his yard had at least 2 inches of water yesterday. You can see the pictures of mine yesterday, and, Mark and Kathy's.
It's an undersized system, which is taking a lot of street drainage, and it's a relatively flat pipe, so it gets inundated. The water does drain, it gets inundated during heavy rainfalls because of the size of the pipe and the amount of drainage that's going into those multiple windows.
Does the borough own that infrastructure? Like, would it be our responsibility to update it, replace it, repair it?
It's tied ties into our system, I'm sure that there, you know, there may not be records, but back in the day, you know, when there wasn't a lot of things formally done, they might have extended the system up through there, the borough, and it's at an age where it's crumbling, and maybe a design is not big enough or not enough fall, but it's hard to get fall in that area. So
The water table's so low.
yeah, because you're you know, at the, you know,
Water table's,
the elevation in the water table. And
it's very low.
A lot of fences and sheds need to be moved. There's a lot of things on top of that pipe.
But as far as the inlets falling in, they could be repaired, correct?
Yeah, I'd like to, when you, Matt, I know I'm asking you to go back in time a year ago, but when you reviewed that data, did anything jump out at you? Can you remember anything that was substantial?
I'll take a look at it and see. There was a lot of piping involved. Yeah, I'll take a look at it.
Thank you.
On 123 State Street. Actually, I had a question for Mara, but they left. But I did walk outside with them. I remember sitting at those meetings when we first started Mara. I was on the board for 7 years. When we sat at the very first meeting with the lady from Mechanicsburg, with the school district, with Lower Swatera, with Royalton, it was said they would be self-sufficient. And the boroughs and the townships would not be paying into it because that's what they would do. He doesn't remember it, but I do, because I said, and you were with me, Ken, I wasn't going to bound another council to 4 years.
I remember.
They said they were going to be self-sufficient, and they're not. And he doesn't plan on becoming self-sufficient.
He doesn't.
I know he doesn't. I just talked to him out in the hallway. He has no intention of being self-sufficient. And that's a problem. And then I asked them, the boards, when we used to sit on the board, we had a vote on who we hired, who we fired, what was purchased. The programs came before the board before they were put out. And none of that is occurring. And he confirmed that too. But he did say they're going to go back to old school because they realized they screwed up. It's a little late now, though. The money is already spent.
Thank you.
Thanks. Is there anyone else with public comment? Seeing none, we will be going to executive session, and I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Meeting adjourned.
Chocolate?
So, Jim,
Give me one of those.
I'm still not
Or-
on the fence with that reindeer thing.
well, as much as I'd like to stick it to him, that also,